Okay. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Africa ELTA monthly webinar. English teaching and learning is much more examination oriented than activity oriented, and it lacks creativity and fun. And it is important to find an adequate way to take into account both examinations and fun. And this is why Africa ELTA is organizing this month webinar, which is on storytelling, a great multicultural teaching tool. And this will be led by Professor Ralph Mama. Professor Ralph Mama is a distinguished professor of English, the only one in the world today who tells English in English, I would say, French, Fon, and Yoruba for tales from his native Benin and other parts of the world. He is the best selling author of Pourquoi le bouc sent mauvais, the French version of Why Goats Smell Bad. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Professor Ralph Mama. Professor, you're welcome, and you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Professor Lamation. Thank you, Professor Imran, for inviting me. I want to thank all those participating in this webinar for the gift of their presence. Storytelling is a wonderful multicultural teaching tool. And I want the audience to watch the storytelling videos that I have recorded. And after that, we're going to say a few words about the presentation. I'm going to, comment on the presentation and then point out some of the things that make storytelling such a wonderful multicultural teaching tool. So for now, I want you to watch my storytelling presentation. Thank you. I don't see the video, so
yeah,
is that okay? Okay, all right. Let's see if you can find the answers to the riddles. I run and run and run, but I'm never, ever tired. So who am I? So who am I?
I eat and eat and eat, but I'm never ever full. I eat and eat and eat, but I'm never ever full. So who am I? So who am I? I am very special. I visit people on a regular basis, and very often I change their lives forever. Who am I? I am very special. I cannot be bought or sold. And the more you give me away, the more you share me, the more I grow. Who am I? My story takes flight over countries and kingdoms of long ago. And it lights on tiger one day in the jungle. Tiger, tiger, burning bright in the forest of the night. Tiger, tiger, burning bright in the forest of the night. So that morning, Tiger was prowling and prowling and prowling through the jungle when all of a sudden he came face to face with goat. I'm going to eat you and eat you and eat you. I'm going to eat you and eat you and eat you. Please don't eat me. Please don't eat me. Well, how did goat happen to find himself in the jungle? Well, you see, goat was a little absent-minded. He was easily distracted. His mother sent him one day on an errand to the house of a neighbor. But just as soon as goat left his house, he forgot all about the errand and started wandering and wandering and wandering about with his nose in the air. And all of a sudden, he found himself face to face with Tiger because he had strayed into the jungle. And Tiger went, I'm going to eat you and eat you and eat you. I'm going to eat you and eat you and eat you. Please don't eat me. Please don't eat me. Well, Tiger said, what brought you here? What brought you here? Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Please don't eat me. Please don't eat me. Well, Tiger said, as a matter of fact, I'm in a very good mood today. And because I'm in a good mood, I will give you a chance of escape. Oh, really? How can you tell me how? Shut up, or else I'm going to eat you and eat you and eat you. You see, I want you to make 3 statements right now. 3 statements that no one can disagree with. 3 statements about our encounter in this jungle. So what is your first statement? If you pass the test, I'll let you go. But if you fail it, I'm going to eat you and eat you and eat you. Please don't eat me. Please don't eat me. Well then, Tiger said, what's your first statement? Let me think. For this is a serious matter. It's a matter of life and death. So let me think about it. So Goat thought and thought and thought. And he thought and thought and thought. I have one. What is it? What is it? What is it? Here it is. Here it is. Here it is. I think that if you let me go now, and I go home and tell my mom and my brothers and sisters and the community that I met you, tiger, face to face, but you didn't eat me, you let me go? No, I will believe it. Right on, tiger said. You seem to me a very smart goat. What is your next statement? Let me think, for this is a very serious matter. It's a matter of life and death. So let me think a little bit, sir. And goat thought and thought and thought and thought. And he thought and thought and thought. I have another one. What is it? What is it? What is it? Here it is, here it is, here it is. I think that if you let me go now, and you go back to your house, and you tell your wife and your children and the other members of your community that you, tiger, came face to face with me, goat, but you didn't eat me, you let me go. No one will believe it. Right on, tiger said. You seem to me a very smart goat. What is your third and final statement? Let me think. Well, this is a very serious matter. It's a matter of life and death. The goat thought and thought and thought and thought. And he thought and thought, I have another one. What is it? 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 Here it is, here it is, here it is. Here it is, here it is, here it is. I think that before you and I met this morning, you had a big and delicious meal, and that put you in a very good mood. And that was why you gave me a chance of escape. Right on, tiger said. You are indeed a very smart goat. Go home then. Go home now. And don't ever come back to this jungle. For if you do, I'll surely eat you and eat you and eat you, eat you, eat you. Please don't eat me. Please don't eat me. Well, many, many years ago, I was still a young man, and I was just starting out as a storyteller. I told this story to a colleague of mine who was a professor of economics, and he frowned and he shook his head, and he said, I hate your story. Oh, why do you hate my story? No one had ever told me they hated my story, so I wanted to know why. Your story is stupid, the professor said. Your story makes no sense, you see. The American version of it makes much more sense and is much more powerful, much more logical. Could you please tell me the American version, please? I will tell you. Well, and the professor proceeded to tell me the American version of the story. Well, in the American version, the tiger was an American business tigerman. And the American business tigerman set for the American goat the same test that the African tiger had set for the African goat. And you know what? The American goat came up with the very same statements that the African goat had made. If you let me go now, and I go back home, and I tell my mother and my brothers and sisters and the members of my community that I met you face to face, but you let me go, no one will believe it. If you let me go now and you return to your house and you tell your wife and your children and the other members of your community that you, tiger, met me goat face to face, but you didn't eat me, no one will believe it. And before you and I met this morning, you had a big and delicious meal, and that put you in a very good mood. Well, as you can see, the American goat made the very same statements that the African goat had made. But this is what the American business tigerman said. You are indeed a very smart goat, but I'll kill you anyway, for I have a freezer in my house. And the American business tigerman killed the American goat and cut him up and put the meat in his freezer. And this is a poem I want to share with you. Kindness. It takes more than an apple to fill a basket. It takes more than an apple tree to make an orchard. But all it takes is one person for a little kindness to shine, like an apple to be shared by all. The interview with God. I had a dream that I interviewed God. So you want to interview me, God said? If you have the time, I said. God smiled. My time is eternity, he said. So what do you have in mind to ask me? And I said, what surprises you the most about humankind? And God said, that they get bored with childhood. They rush to grow up, and they long to be children again. And they lose their health to make money, and they lose their money to restore their health. That by focusing so anxiously upon the future, they forget all about the present, so that in the end, they live in neither the present nor the future. That they live as if they would never die, and they die as though they had never lived. God's hand took mine, and we were silent a while. Then I said, as a parent, what life lessons do you want your children to learn? And God said that they cannot make anyone love them. All they can do is let themselves be loved. That it's not good to compare oneself to others. They must learn forgiveness by practicing forgiveness. And there are many people who love them dearly, but who just don't know how to show or express it. And it takes just a few moments to open profound wounds in those they love. And it may take many years to heal them. That two people can look at the same thing and see it differently. And the richest person is not one who has the most, but one who needs the least. That it's not enough that they forgive one another. They must also forgive themselves. And this above all, I'm here for them always. 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 Thank you.
Okay. Well, let me say a few words about storytelling as a multicultural teaching tool. You know, as you watch me telling the story, you may have, noticed that I use gestures, facial expressions. I try to speak clearly, so there was, clarity of expression. I use simple words, simplicity of diction, and I tried to speak as fluently as I could. I keep the storytelling flowing, so fluency of delivery. Through storytelling, you can teach, public speaking. You can teach oral communication skills. You can teach languages. For example, if you take, the language in which I delivered the story, you can teach vocabulary. You can teach history. You can teach about culture. You can even teach writing. So there's a number of things you can teach through storytelling. And of course, you teach them about listening, because you had to listen very carefully in order to follow the story. You listen from beginning to end. You also teach them about storytelling. If you want, those of your students who like to be storytellers can learn from you as you tell stories, as you tell them stories. Storytelling is a wonderful means of communication. Of course, the good storytelling skills make good teachers. The teachers with great storytelling skills are, are some of the best teachers, really, because it really adds something to the, it brings something extra into the classroom. The storytelling also teaches morals. It's an instrument of moral instruction. If you take the story I've told, if goat had panicked, and I'm focusing on the African version now. If goat had panicked, he would have tried to run, and that would have been the end of him. So when you are in trouble, don't panic. That story also teaches the importance of creative thinking. You have to think outside the box, as the jargon goes. Creative thinking is an important skill. Keeping promises. In the African version, Tiger promised to let goat go if he made 3 statements that no one could disagree with about their encounter. And goat did make those statements, and Tiger let him go. Keeping promises is very important. What can you and I achieve? What can you and I build on mistrust? Because if you don't keep your promises, nobody will trust you. But you see, we cannot build anything on mistrust. We cannot build a family on mistrust. We cannot build friendship on mistrust. We cannot build a community on mistrust. we cannot build a nation on mistrust. And we certainly cannot make this world a better place for all to live in if we don't foster trust in each other. These are some of the things you can teach through storytelling. And of course, once you've shared the story with someone, there's a connection there. And when you teach a lesson through a story, that lesson would abide forever. Because so long as the learner remembers the story, he or she will remember the lesson. So this is just a summary of what I think about the virtue of storytelling as a wonderful multicultural teaching tool. I wonder if anyone in the audience has questions or comments. And you may have noticed that at the beginning I threw a few riddles. I run and run and run, but I'm never ever tired. Who am I? That's a kind of brain teaser, as it were. If you walk into the classroom and you throw your students a riddle like that really improves the mood and it creates suspense and excitement. I run and run and run, but I'm never ever tired. Who am I? I'm a river. I eat and eat and eat, but I'm never ever, full. Who am I? I'm fire, 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 fire. I'm sold. The more you give me away, the more I grow. Who am I? What am I? Can anybody answer that question? Anyone? Well, I am love. I am love. Okay. So those are some of the riddles that I used while I was doing the presentation. Any questions, any comments?
Okay, I'm sure there will be some questions. Before these questions, I have this question from the audience. I have one question.
Yes, go ahead.
To address to the presenter.
Yeah.
I realized that while then making an account of those stories, you were also missing the account to the story. You were putting the story and song together.
Yes.
And I love you tell me the motive why you think storytelling is always accompanied by a song.
Well, you see, I consider myself as a storyteller out of the African oral tradition. And in the years of my childhood, my favorite pastime was to listen to stories. And of course, there was no TV then. We didn't have books, but in the evening there was storytelling, and it was always a blending of stories and singing and dance sometimes, you know. For example, if you take in the fun culture, there's a song that is sung to introduce storytelling. Oh, wenu ho, o mekado bakaise, o wenu ho, o meweno wena kaya kaho na humeli, o mekado yangaga wesu kaho na humeli, o meweno bakaise. Wenu ho, I say. That's a song that the storyteller sings at the beginning of his or her presentation. All right. And most of the stories, at least those I heard as a child, had songs in them. And the storyteller would not only sing the song, but he or she would dance as well. You see? So as a child, I learned that storytelling was not just about telling a story. It's really a blending of poetry and music and stories and dance. One of the things you can also teach through storytelling is rhyming, you know, rhyming and rhythm. You may have noticed that tigers say, I'm going to eat you and eat you and eat you. And go to one, please don't eat me, please don't eat me. You see, the rhythm, there's rhythm, there's music. You know, when we communicate with little children, with infants, we use repetition, we use miming, we use rhyming, we use simple words, you see? And my theory is that in each man and each woman, in every man and every woman, there's a child. And the best way to touch that child is by, you know, by using repetition, you know, music, rhythm, and very simple language. Use your facial expressions also. And any child, any infant would be able to be able to follow you and understand what you're saying. So that's a long answer to a very simple question. I'm sorry, but that's the rationale behind it, as far as I'm concerned.
Okay, this is well said. Professor, could you please, there is a question here which I would like you to address. Those teachers who love to use stories in the different classes, and they don't know how to tell stories. Which sort of advice or which sort of pieces of advice could you give those teachers?
That's a very good question. Now, we all are storytellers, but some are better than others. All right. Now, before you tell a story, you make sure that you know the story very well. You know, when I teach storytelling here, I tell my students, you must know the story as you know your friend. If I ask you, tell me about your friend, you're not going to say, oh, let me go get my notes. You don't need notes to talk about your friend. So you shouldn't need notes to tell a story. You must have spent a lot of time with it. It's not about memorizing the story. It's about not knowing the story so well that you can tell it in your own words. All right. Now, when you tell a story, you have to make sure you keep eye contact with those you're telling the story with. Okay. Make sure there is simplicity of expression. Clarity of expression. Speak clearly. Use simple words. Simplicity of diction. Make sure there is fluency of delivery. Make sure the story you tell it fluently. Even if you forget something, don't panic. Just stay calm and find a way to bring that which you have left back into the story. Okay? But the more you practice, the better you get. You see? So spend a lot of time with the story so that you get to know it very well. Keep eye contact with your audience. Use gestures, but make sure that the gestures are harmonious with your words. Use your gestures to bring the story to life, as it were. Use your hands, use your voice, use your feet, use your whole body. So those are the most important, the most potent tools in the storyteller's bag. You don't need any other tools. Your voice, your facial expressions, your hands, your feet, your whole body. If you make the most of those, the storytelling experience is going to be a wonderful experience, not just for you, but for those listening and watching as well.
Okay, so to cap it up, there are then some competencies that a teacher, an English teacher, needs to carry out storytelling, right?
Some skills.
Okay, some skills.
Yeah.
Yes. What are then those skills?
Well, that's what I'm saying. You have to speak fluently. You have to make sure that you speak clearly, right?
Yeah.
You have to be able to deliver the story without hesitation, without stumbling.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying. You had to make eye contact. You had to keep eye contact with the audience. Okay.
Great.
You had to use your hands. You had to use gestures to bring the story alive. You see, don't try to memorize the story. It's not about memorizing. Okay.
All
Make
right.
sure you spend time with the story. Just like, if you want to teach a lesson, you must spend a lot of time working on the lesson. You don't memorize the lesson. You just make sure you mastered it, so that when you come to class, you won't be, you want to rivet your eyes on your notes, because when you do that, you lose eye contact with the learners, and that creates a wall between you and the learners. Okay. And the story I told the African version, and I told the American version. You see, through storytelling, you can teach cultural differences. You can teach about culture.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, so we have another question.
Yeah.
Now, after the storytelling, what sort of activities can be carried out after the storytelling? Yes.
Yeah, you ask you can, for example, you can ask them to summarize the story. you know, you can ask them to paraphrase it. Okay. Paraphrasing and summarizing are two different things. So you can, you know, when you paraphrase, you say the same thing in different words. But when you summarize, you just say it in a, you come up with a shorter version of what has been said. Okay. You can ask them listening comprehension question, you know, how did goat happen to find himself in the jungle? What did tigers do? What was tiger's response what was tiger's reaction? You can also ask them about the moral lessons the story teaches. You can ask them about some of the issues the story raises. Okay. Is it okay? I mean, what do they make of Tiger's attitude? Of course, that raises the question of trust. And as I pointed out before, I said, you know, as I pointed out a few moments ago, you know, we cannot build anything on mistrust. So keeping promises is very important, you see. So not only are you giving your students, you know, moral instruction and civic instruction, but you also teaching them, you teach them literary skills. You're teaching them about communication skills. And they're having a good time in the meantime, which is very important.
Thank you, Professor. Now, for you, are there any resources to tell stories?
Well, yeah, go ahead.
This is another question from the audience. They would like to know if if there are some resources that are needed to tell stories in the classroom.
Well, you may have heard of TED Talks. If you go online, you just Google TED Talks. There are hundreds and hundreds of TED Talks presentations. I teach storytelling every semester here, and one of the assignments I give my students is, you know, a TED Talk. I ask them to find a TED Talk presentation that they consider a splendid example of storytelling. A TED Talk presentation that represents storytelling at its best, and they had to talk to the class about that TED Talk and explain why they picked it as a splendid example of storytelling. Okay, and they had to work in groups. That teaches them teamwork. Instead of competing with one another, they work with one another. You see what I'm saying? And of course, there are many books out there. I know that, you know, in my country, Benin, it's not easy to find books, which is a crying shame. We spend so much money on politics. We invest so much money in politics. Politicians make so much money, but education is really, I mean, nobody pays much attention to education. We don't have libraries. We don't have bookstores. So, but I hope it's different in other countries, you know. But, you know, books, the more you read, the better you get, really.
Definitely.
I myself have, you know, for example, Why Goats Smell Bad. The French version is required reading in the 7th grade in Benin. Okay. And you have the Pine Noir, for example, and many other books. I mean, I have my book, Why Monkeys Live in Trees. which won the National Multicultural Teaching Tool. I mean, the National Multicultural Children's Book Award in 2008. There are many, many books there. I mean, Dr. Seuss, you have, I mean, the Brother Grimm tales, the Hans Christian Andersen. There's so, just, you can Google the most important thing is to read stories and to listen to stories. If you go into the internet, you know, there are many, many stories out there that you can listen to for free. So listening to stories, reading books, that's the best way to you know, to enrich your own repertoire of stories.
All right. Yeah. Another question: is there anything to avoid while telling stories? And the other question is,
yeah.
how should one engage one's audience in storytelling?
Well, I mean, when you tell a story, don't use big words. Don't use big words. That's a no-no. Use simple words, okay? And don't tell a story unless you know it well. Unless you know it well. You have to build suspense into your storytelling. Suspense really is the soul of storytelling, whether written or oral. Okay, and you just practice and practice and practice until you practice on your own with friends, until you're comfortable telling stories. But remember, it's not about memorizing. Don't memorize the story. Read it several times, read it many times, spend a lot of time with the story until you know the story well. So that if someone should wake you from sleep and ask you who you please tell me the story, you should be able to tell the story with that point. Just getting to know the story, familiarizing yourself with the story, using gestures, using your hands, your facial expressions, your body moving, but not too much. Let your movements, your motions be harmonious with your words.
All right.
Yeah.
We still have many other questions.
Yeah.
So someone would like to know why there are many similarities between African tales and English tales. How you, as a specialist of storytelling, could explain this.
Well, I mean, Carl Jung, the great, psychoanalyst, said that he explained it very well. He said, whatever story you take, you will find a variant of the story in other cultures, because all the stories that we tell that have been written, he argued that they come out of the collective unconscious of mankind. They come out of the collective unconscious of mankind. That was Carl Jung's theory, okay? Because the stories we tell are about our hopes and our fears, our joys, our laughter, our sorrows, about the passing of time, our vulnerability to death and disease, our attempt to leave some marks of our passage on earth. Those are the things that our stories are about. And these are the same all over the world. Those, I mean, those transcend cultural, gender, gender, skin color, you know, identity. You see? So the stories come out of the collective unconscious. And that's why there are so many similarities between them.
Now, how could we then teach these similarities to our students?
When you tell a story, for example,
yeah.
Your students would certainly think, it will certainly make your students think of a story they have heard somewhere or read somewhere.
Okay.
And you can you can make that a topic of this discussion. Say, you know, can you think of any stories in your own culture? Can you think of any? Does this story remind you of any story you have read somewhere or heard? You see, that's how I do it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, do stories always have to reflect a core purpose?
Well, a story always has a point. Maybe to make people laugh, to make people think, to inspire. You know, to strike fear, to sound a note of caution, to warn you. You know, there's no such thing as a as a pointless story.
Okay. By the way, there are many people in the audience here who would like you to share with them your video, that video you have just shared, you have just played with us. They would love if you could share this with them. So,
well, I thought you have. I thought you have it. And Iman,
we cannot
has,
share. We cannot
yeah?
share. We cannot share.
I mean, I cannot do that right now, but I can. You cannot send them the link.
They cannot have access to the link because the way it was sent is linked to a personal email.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
I see. Well, I mean, I had to. I mean, if they send me their email,
okay,
I can send them, and I'm also going to put the storytelling videos on my site, my website, when it's ready. It should be ready within a couple of months, and I'm going to put other things there also, and with a you know, very small fee, they can access everything on that site. Yeah.
Now we in a technological world, and we also want to use stories in our different classes.
Yeah.
And yes, how could we put together technology and storytelling? This is another question from the audience.
Well, I'm the wrong person to ask because I'm not technologically savvy. But I mean, this thing we're doing now, you know, to record the story and upload it, you know, that's you know, bringing technology to bear on an ancient platform. You see. But I mean, I don't use too much technology. I mean, I have a storytelling CD, for example, and of course, I'm going to make it available on my site. But no, I'm not. I don't know. I'm the wrong person to ask that question. Because I don't. I use technology I use technology minimally because I'm not technologically savvy.
Okay. Okay. For that issue of a website link,
Yeah.
so you can send your website link, and we will
When
share.
it's ready, yes. When it's ready, you and I are in contact.
Okay.
So I'm going to keep you posted, really. But
Okay.
if the members of the audience can send me the contact, their email addresses,
Yeah.
then I'll find a way to send them the videos, the
Okay.
storytelling videos. Okay.
Okay. So those who love to have then the
Who are
video,
interested? Yes. Let
you
me have the email,
can
and
send your
then
email.
I'll have our Center of Information Technologies help me send them the videos.
So for those who are joining, this is Africa ELTA monthly webinar, and the title of this month webinar is Storytelling, a Great Multicultural Teaching Tool. And this is presented by Professor Ralph Mama. Professor, now, do you have anything special to tell the audience about storytelling before we end this webinar?
Well, before I end it, I just want to I want to let them know that, to remind them that we didn't go into teaching for the money. Teaching is, to me, it's the noblest calling in the world. It's the noblest profession. And if they can use storytelling techniques, a few storytelling techniques, even a couple, in their teaching, that should really make them better teachers, using eye contact, and for sort of spending a lot of time on the lesson you want to teach, just as if you're trying to learn a story to be able to tell it. It's about time investment, okay? Dedication. You have to have a passion for it. If you don't have a passion for it, forget it, okay? So, and must remember that you are the source of inspiration and a model to the children, to the students. So do your very best every day. Do your very best, knowing that you are a builder for the future. You're building the house of the future. Okay, you're preparing the next generation for the task of nation building. Okay, so that's what I wanted to share with you. You are very special because the teaching profession is the noblest profession in the world. There is not much money in it, but the reward you reap in the form of the difference we make to the lives of our students is just immeasurable.
So we still have many questions left, but we are running out of time.
Yes.
So some people would like to know from which grade can one start using storytelling to teach other language
Any
skills?
grade. I get invited to tell stories to to children who are in kindergarten.
Okay.
You know, you have to bring yourself down to their level. When you tell a story to the very young, you use a lot of gestures, a lot of facial expressions, a lot of rhythm, a lot of repetition. Okay, you had to be an actor. Okay, use simple words, repetition, use simple stories. And then the older the more sophisticated. But when dealing with the very, very young, make sure you use very, very simple words, a lot of repetition, a lot of gestures. Okay, a lot of gestures, make it participatory. Make them do something as part of the storytelling. Okay? May they say something, do something, because they lose interest very easily. Little children lose interest very easily. You had to really hold their attention. Okay?
Thank you, Professor. As someone said in the audience, this is a great presentation.
Thank you, Professor Lamation. Thank you.
Yeah.
I want to thank the members of the audience once again for the gift of their presence today, for the trust they've put in me, for the time you devoted to this. You had many, many things competing for your attention, for your time, but you were able to make time to attend this. It's a great honor for me to have been able to communicate with you. And Professor Lamation will give you my email address. Send me your coordinates so that I can email you can find a way to email you the videos.
So, ladies and gentlemen, this is Africa ELTA monthly webinar, and we would like to thank Professor Ralph Mama for having accepted out of his packed schedule to be there today and share some of.
I hope to be able to meet you face to face and present face to face. It's much better. It's really much better, and I hope that one day, in a not too distant future, we shall be able to meet face to face, and I'll really entertain you with storytelling.
Africa ELTA hope so.
Thank you. I want to thank you. I want to thank Iman for being such wonderful colleagues, for inviting me to this webinar. I cannot thank you enough. God bless you.
Yes, so may God bless you too, Professor, and bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you. God bless you.
Bye-bye.